All right, welcome back. So in this project 2, we are going to deal with the next level of Jenkins automation. Here we are going to see what are the things that we can implement as a part of Jenkins CI/CD. Okay, so this is a React-based application. So under the same subdirectory, that is directory number 9, you'll find the description about this project. Okay, so the objective of this project is very much clear. It is to automate the build and deployment process of a React app. Earlier, we saw how application which is made up of Python can be automated. Here, we are making use of Jenkins and Docker for build push, and then we are automatically deploying the container after a successful build. So these are the objective of this project. Okay, the application link can be found over here, and here you can find what are the tech stack that we have used. It is React plus Vite plus Tailwind. Okay, and then we are using Docker plus Nginx and Jenkins for CI/CD. Now here we have a small description about the Jenkins pipeline that we are using for this project. Okay, here we are going to make use of the environment. Okay, under environment, the image name is stored as this because this is something which may vary. That's the reason we added it in the environment variable and the tag also. Now see, in the previous video, if you remember, we just explicitly added the image tag, but here it will automatically update. Why? Because here the environment tag, the image tag will be changed by the environment build number. Okay, so the number of build will be added, it will add the number of tags. Okay, so there won't be any duplicate tags which are going to present over here. Then again, the same stages, it will check out, then there will be npm node and install and build, which will install the required packages in order for the application to work fine. Then we are going to build it, and then we are finally going to push it, and after pushing this done, we are going to deploy it, and we are actually going to see how does the application works. Okay, I want you to show you a small overview on my local. So npm run dev. Okay, and here you can see how does the look and feel of the application look like. Okay, now see, this is basically a GitHub profile summarizer that will actually tell how many repos are there. Okay, how many followers you have, what is your main tech stack. Okay, so let me just enter my username. Okay, and I click on summarize. Now here I am passing one environment variable that is GPG key, that is personal access token of your GitHub. So that is the main reason it is actually doing the authentication and is actually fetching the data. Okay, it will take some time based on the repository that you have, and it will actually display the result. Okay, so right now you can see it has displayed my profile picture, all the tags, followed by how many followers I have, how many public repos I have. Okay, and then now it will generate a dashboard and will tell me, okay, how many percentage of languages that I'm using, and this is the actual stack that it actually told me. Okay, and how many primary language I'm proficient is. So right now it is saying that the primary language is JavaScript. Now it is based on the percentage that it is actually displaying. Now once you hover over it, you will find how many percentage of the language has been used in the entire repo. So that is the basic application, right? Now things were fine on dev. Now when it goes to cloud, things will change, right? So that is something that we are going to see today. Okay, right. So here you can see the repository currently present on this link. If you see, this is the actual repo where the entire code is present. You may refer the main branch, and further modification if you want to do, feel free to fork the repo and do the contribution. Okay, so I'd explicitly have added the .env file over here, and this is the place where you have to update your GPG key. Okay, now once the value is updated, then the application will work fine. Okay, and here you can see all the files are currently present. Okay, and it will work and it will look like the same that I have created. Okay, if you go through the readme.md file, you can actually see and actually run it into your local, and then you can work on the containerization. Okay, now further going to Docker file, you can see I have added multi-stage over here. Okay, so the first one would be we are using the Alpine image, and then we are passing the build arguments where we are passing the GitHub token, and then we are copying all the packages which are installed. Okay, and then we are running npm install. Now in the second stage, what we are doing, we are taking everything which was done in the previous stage, and then we are copying it into the build step, and then we are running the application directly. Okay, now that was the basic introduction of this application. Now let's get started with the Jenkins CI/CD automation. Okay, now here we are in the dashboard. Let me create a new job for it, and we are going to write it as GitHub Folio Summarizer. Okay, and this would be a pipeline. I'll click on OK. Now since my Jenkins file is stored over the repository, I'll copy it from here. I go back to pipeline, and here I'll define the definition, and my pipeline is stored in the source code manager, and here the SCM is Git. I have to provide the repository URL. Now see, since this is the public repository, we don't have to pass the credentials. Okay. And here we need to define the branches name. Okay. Now, once everything is done, click on apply and save. Okay. Now, is the thing done? Because if you go to the repository, if you see the .env, okay, here we have passed an demo value. Go back and click on build now. Okay. Here see, it failed on build node. Let us see what actually is the issue. Npm install, and here it is saying npm is not called. No worries, let us install npm first. Okay, so here I'll write npm -- version to see whether npm may actually install in my system. Now, since it was a very fresh machine and this was not present, so I'll run the command apt install npm. So based on the application size, it will actually install each and everything. And now once everything is done, we are actually going to see what is the current version of the node which is installed. Okay. So I'll just run npm -- version. And here the node version is 9.2.0. All right. All right. So npm is finally installed. Now let us go back to the pipeline. And here I'll click on build now again. Okay. Now this time the npm build should work. Okay. And let us wait for some time. And here if we go to console, okay, this should actually work. So let us see and iterate through the output, and this is the actual place where we'll see what actually is the issue. Okay, now here let us go back. Here npm install was done. Okay, and then let us scroll back, and if I go back to profile summarizer, it failed during docker build. Okay, now let us encounter what actually is the issue. Okay, let me go back to Jenkins file, and I'll just check what actually are the things that we passed in the Jenkins file, because there might be an environment mismatch. Okay, so Docker build is done. Here Docker login, we are passing Docker hub. Okay, meaning that is also good. Okay, here we are passing one credential which I wanted to show you. Okay, so during build time, this is failing. Okay, and if I go back over here, if I go back to the log for the second build, okay, here okay, all right. It fetched the repository. Update Jenkins file was the last done. Okay. And it actually failed during the zipping. Chunk size limit for volume build size. Okay. Now see here that stage got failed. Okay. Because there is one value which was not passed. Okay. Now that is this variable GitHub token secret. Okay. Now this is something that we have to define. Okay. Now during the runtime, this is the place where we are actually referring to. Okay. Now what I'll do, I'll go back to GitHub Portfolio Summarizer. I'll go back to the Jenkins dashboard. I have to go to settings, and under settings, there is one thing that is credentials. Now, if you remember in the previous videos, we have been following along with credentials, where we were actually adding the credential for Docker Hub, which was a username and password based authentication. Now, since this is related to GitHub, we are passing our PAT key. Okay. Now I'll go back to global and I just add the credential. This credential will be a secret text. Okay. And the scope would be global, and I will have to pass the secret. Okay. Now I'll go back to my Visual Studio Code, and here under .env, I will pass the GPG key. For your account, it may vary. So you have to pass the secret over here and click on create. Now we have added the secret credentials over here. I'll go back to Jenkins again, and I'll go back to GitHub Portfolio Summarizer and click on build. So let us wait for some more time and see whether we are getting the same issue again or not. Okay, because here this ID was missing, which we right now just added. Okay. And this will, what it will do, it will pass this value, the token, the pat key during the build time as an argument. That will help it to build the image. Okay. Now, if I go back, this time you see the build is actually happening. It is taking 14 seconds. It will take some more time and the build will be generated for us. Okay. All right, see, the build was success, okay, and the token was passed, and that was the reason we were getting that issue. And now you can see the pipeline is actually clean, and the image is actually pushed to the repo also, okay. And here you can see layer already exists, and we actually pushed the image, and the tag is the Shubham gour, Shubham Profile Summarizer, that is, and the version is v3, because if we remember in the environment variable we added the tag as the build number, and this is build number third. That's the reason it is showing as v3. Okay, it did the login and it actually pushed the image to Docker Hub. And if I go to deploy images, you can see it is exposed to port number 8081. So the first thing would be I will have to copy the IP address and the port number. I'll go back to here and I'll just replace this with port number 8081. But again, things won't work because we didn't define the security group rules. So I'll go back to instance, and here under security, I need to update the inbound rule. If you go to security groups, here you need to expose the port number 8081. So I'll go to edit inbound rule. I'll add one rule that would be custom TCP, and this would be port number 8081. And here I'll just add the cider and click on save rules. Now the rules are updated and you can see the application will be up and running fine within minutes. Okay. And here after exposing the port, the application is running fine. Now I'll just pass one username, and that is my own GitHub username. And here you can see the application is running fine and it is actually showing the data as it was showing in the local host. Okay. So in this video, we learned about how we can containerize a React build application. We also learned that how you can pass your SSH keys. Okay. Now, not the SSH key, your PAT key, a personal access token key, because see, I would have added it into the gate. Okay. That is under the .env, but that is literally a very bad practice. So that's the reason we usually don't usually push .env file into the GitHub repository itself. These are the things which you pass over the runtime. In our case, we passed it using the credential helper. If you go to the Jenkins file, okay, in this Docker build step, you see with credential, we pass the credential ID, that is GitHub token secret, which we added in the credential helper. And from there, it is taking the PAT key and it is actually been executed during the runtime. And that is how we resolve this issue. Okay. And the second thing is we are renaming the build with the build number. So we don't have to worry about the tags. If I go to my Docker Hub account, I can actually show you how many builds we have generated so far. Okay. Now, if you technically see, the third build was successfully executed and we should be able to see the final build, that is v3. If I go to GitHub Profile Summarizer, if I go back to tags, okay, the latest would be the v3 that is pushed 3 minutes ago. So that's the actually thing that we encountered over here, and that is the actual solution that we are getting. Okay, here you can actually replace it with some another username also, Siddharth-SDK. If I run this one, okay, it takes some time, and if it actually tell how many repos are there and what are the primary languages used. Okay, I hope you learned a lot from this specific project, and I will see you in the next one with one more another project that would be a Maven based project. And yeah, that will certainly add some more value to your learning. And again, there is one more thing. If you feel like to add something more that will help you in your understanding for Jenkins, feel free to fork this repository and do further modification. All right, because changes are very much welcome. All right. So yeah, that was all, and I will see you in the next one.